Hello and blessings, dear sisters of Return of the Priestess Facebook group, and all those who may watch this later on YouTube or BitChute. This is Dawn Del Vecchio coming to you live on Sunday morning, the last day of February 2021. And I'm happy and hopeful that this is actually coming through because I am using my phone as a hotspot right now and coming to you live from my little house here, my new house. So I don't have my internet set yet, but for some reason my phone seems to be working even with one bar as a hotspot. So yay to that. So if you're hearing me and seeing me okay, if you would please give me a thumbs up or say hello or loud and clear, let me know. I see that some of you are coming on the line here. I'm actually very excited about what I have to share with you today. Not because it's a particularly pleasant topic. I mean, I think it's an important message for our times, but the power of the transmission that I can feel coming through is quite strong. So, hey, good morning, Pat. Hey, Pat, I got was it you that sent me the email yesterday about your experience with the children? Either you or your sister. I will be forwarding that to Chris. I was traveling here yesterday. It's 4.5 to 5.5 hours to get here by car. So anyway, here I am in my little love nest house by myself this week because my husband's working back in Sedona. And anyway, hi Amy, good morning. Hi, am I coming in? Oh, okay. Am I coming in pretty clear for you all? Um, well, this is weird. It's saying that I've been live for 33 minutes. I haven't been live for 33 minutes, I don't think. Anyway, hi Judith, good morning. Pat says all good. Okay, so as I said, I've got a transmission that I'm very, feel a lot of energy around to share with you. So let's get started. All clear from Judith's end too. Great. I want to support my lower back a little bit here. Okay, so let's take a moment to ground and center, to tune in, to become available for whatever message wants to come through. So if it's safe to do so, you can close your eyes. And today I want to begin with a prayer. Divine Mother, thank you for this opportunity to connect with my sisters in sacred space. Recognizing that all time and space is now, we honor those who join this gathering at any now moment. And Divine Mother, I ask that you bring forward the transmission that would be in highest service to my sisters, supporting me in getting out of the way to allow this message to come through. Again, in the name of love and for the highest good of all. Let's just breathe together into that, receiving the breath with an inhale, gathering our energies inward, and exhaling to release and surrender all the responsibilities of the day, letting go of any burdens. Again, inhaling to come even deeper into the now moment, into the body, into the conscious awareness of this present moment and this gathering. Exhaling to relax the shoulders, relax the neck, relax and soften the belly, and expand the heart. And one more breath in. Opening to receive whatever is most important for you to receive from this transmission. And exhaling to come home to the heart at the center of your being. Thank you. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Good morning, Rosemary. Hey, Janelle. Good morning. Okay. Ascension and the natural human is the theme today. So this is something it's been stirring a lot in me of late, given the issues of our times and the relative excitement about what I would call a choice in timelines to get a certain kind of jab. and what the potentiality is of that, and my concerns about that. And my concerns come from a lot of research and listening to and looking at listening to messages from board certified doctors around the globe who are telling a very different tale about safety, the value, the efficacy, and the risks involved in said jab, and the amount of censorship that's going on around that, which is always suspicious. When something is seriously censored, it's like, but I'm not going to go fully there yet. What I'm doing is talking about the things that have motivated and sort of brought this to the forefront for me to consider right now, because we know that the worlds are splitting, and we know that the consciousness in humanity is making a clear choice. The trains have left the station, they're parting, and the choices we make in this year are really going to be a determining factor for how we live out the rest of this incarnation. So I wanted to talk about this ascension process in terms of the natural human. So I've made some notes here. I did a whole essay on it yesterday, but it wasn't well written, so I didn't turn it into anything yet. I'd have to revise it a lot. Sometimes when I write in my journal, something flows out with a lot of clarity. Yesterday, I think there's a lot more that needs to be done with it. But so I want to start with the question, what is a natural human? Have you ever asked that question? I've been asking it lately. I mean, it never had occurred to me up until this past year to really ask the question, but I think it's a worthy inquiry. What is a natural human? I don't feel that we are living as natural humans anymore. And I don't feel that most of us have lived as natural humans for a long time, save some indigenous people who have still remained within their indigenous cultures. Now, so I feel like indigenous people give us clues, but I'm not suggesting that a natural human is necessarily one particular type of indigenous person, nor am I suggesting that a natural human is somehow a primitive person. I think this is an arrogant attitude of the scientific ideology that suggests that anything that comes before us is more primitive. And I think that's a false construct to distract us and to keep us from knowing our true history as human beings on this planet. So I feel like indigenous communities give us some key clues that I'm going to talk about. But even as I talk about these, it's worth asking ourselves, were natural humans were Atlanteans living as natural humans? I don't know. I'm just asking the question. Were Lemurian people? Were there other peoples long ago, the pyramid builders, I'm talking not the history we're told, I'm talking about the pre-flood history of what we may have been at that time. I really don't know, but I feel like asking this question is of value at this time. For some of us, for some of us, maybe it's not going to be an issue at all, but to look at least to some indigenous cultures let's look at a few clues of what a natural human is. And again, not saying that this is the apex, the epitome, the role model we must follow as indigenous cultures, but I would say indigenous cultures, if we think about the fact that so many have been wiped out on this planet or genocided in many ways, you got to ask why? Why? Was it just for their lands? I think no. I think that that indigenous cultures were wiped out because they carried certain bodies of wisdom that related to the natural human. And I'm going to get to why I think that is later on in this transmission with regard to the dehumanization of humans. So, and I have to say things in code. So I hope you'll read between the lines, or you can write me privately if something I say is unclear, because of the heavy censorship around these topics right now. So, what clues do indigenous cultures give us? And I'm not an anthropologist, so I'm not speaking from super expertise, but just from some ideas. Again, these are for our inquiry. This is an invitation for us to explore, to ask these questions. Well, one is they're connected with the earth. And in fact, when The shamanic people of South America, who are ayahuasqueros, who are the medicine people of ayahuasca, the plant medicine, were asked, how did you know how to take this leaf and this vine and mix it together to turn it into a medicine that creates an experience of consciousness in people that heals and helps them? You know what their answer was? The plants told us. The plants told us. To me, there is a clue there about what a natural human is. A natural human is connected with the earth. Remember, I've said this before. These mind-body vehicles are made for this planet. They're not made for Arcturus or Sirius or, some other place. There's nothing wrong with those places. And we have galactic sisters and brothers who may have bodies for those places. We're Terrans. We're on Earth. These vehicles were made for that. When we're disconnected from that, from Mother Gaia, from Gaia Sophia, that's a clue right there that we are not being in our natural state. Another clue of what the natural human might be is natural humans, certainly what we see in Indigenous people and many people around the world, is a reverence for something greater than ourselves. You could call it the divine, the great mystery, the numinous. You could call it animism, a reverence for Mother Earth and the fairies and the elves and the trees and the rain and the sun. There is a reverence for something beyond the intellect and the physical, we could say that the science or our experience just now. So as opposed to scientism, which says that, there's nothing really of sacred value. You're living this life. There's no greater meaning to it. And when you die, you're gone. That sounds a lot like a computer, doesn't it? When the computer dies, there's no consciousness left in there. It's gone. It's dead. You can wipe the hard drive and reboot it, break apart the pieces and turn it into, use the hardware for something else. Or the motherboard gets burned, you throw it away. Now, Indigenous peoples, as far to the best of my knowledge, and again, not an anthropologist here, but it's certainly an invitation if this is awakening something in you to explore it, have a reverence for something that is eternal, for something that is beyond this 3D dimensional experience. So too with the ancient religious lineages that come down to us, whether they're distorted or not. There is a reverence for what we could call God, what we could call the divine, the great mystery, etc. So there is a sense of connection with the earth and a connection with divinity. And think about one of the practices that's so common and popular right now in the sacred feminine spirituality space. Anchoring ourselves to Mother Earth and pulling in light from the divine. Why? Because we're reconnecting these energies. And I strongly feel that this is part of what it means to be a natural human. And again, it could be animist, it could be, a religion that relates to a god or a godhead or something, but there's something that recognizes there's something more that is beyond the personal, egoic, lived experience. Another thing that the natural human is organic, right? There's this whole idea that came in the 50s with taking chemicals and using them to quote unquote fertilize crops, which I would say is the opposite of that. And it was this notion of better living through science. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, if we didn't have the internet, I wouldn't be able to talk to you. And quite honestly, I do like my stove with the gas that comes in, and I do like my refrigerator with the electricity that comes in. I'm not saying that all of that stuff is bad, but what I am saying is that, again, I'm not talking about going back to primitive, but I am saying that a natural human had a more natural organic relationship with our food, with the way we grew food, with the way we harvested food, with the way we processed food, with all of that. And again, I'm not saying that we have to go back to hunting and gathering and growing all our own food necessarily. But I think that you've heard me say before, the unloving systems of our world are going to collapse. That includes the food systems. That includes the medical system. That includes the governments. That includes the education system. All these things that have become huge organizations that control people from afar all over the world and create situations where we as individual people, families, communities are deeply disconnected with our own sovereign choices around the laws, around our food production, around our food delivery, around our communities, around our health care, and our sovereignty to make those choices for ourselves. Those systems have become so huge and institutionalized, there's no love in them anymore. And of course, with the food movement and the organic food movement, we know that the GMOs and the distortions of what is food, such that people could eat and eat and eat and be obese and be nutritionally malnourished. And we know that that happens particularly in the West. So the sense of the organic, the natural human, the human that lives close to the earth, connected with the divine, connected with our food sources, and then with our communities. The natural human is a social being. Think about, there have been studies with monkeys, and I'm sure with children too, maybe not studies, but we know this happens. This situation of the failure to thrive. A primate will die if it is not held as an infant. Think about what's happening right now on our planet. Think about the people who are isolated and get no physical touch. And that's been going on for a freaking year almost. With no end in sight, with supposedly the jab. Oh yeah, you get the jab because it's so great, but you still have to do that. And you still have to stay apart from others. Things that make you go, So the natural human is a social being. The natural human touches other humans and needs to be touched by other humans, needs to be held. There are cultures like in Bali, babies, I think it's Bali, and I know there are many other indigenous cultures probably that do something similar. A baby's feet never touch the ground for the first many months of their lives. They are always held. Think about that. And they certainly don't have their face covered, and they're not looking at a mom or a dad whose face is covered like that. The natural human is in the mind-body vehicle, living with the mind-body vehicle as it was designed to function. And this mind-body vehicle and yours and all of ours all have something called an immune system. And that immune system is part of what helps us interface with those things called V's. Singular, it's 2 syllables. If it's a plural, it's 3 syllables. Bacteria, other things in the environment, in order to build that immune system to develop immunity. It is a magnificent design. The human body is a magnificent design. The natural human is a magnificent design, designed to live on Gaia Sophia, on Terra, Earth. So the natural human, let's see, touch babies, the arrogance around considering indigenous cultures as primitive. We talked about that. Natural healing, birth, death, and life cycles. Okay, the natural human is born from the body of a mother, the body of a woman, a mother, breastfeeds from the milk that the mother produces naturally, is raised by a village, by a community, not by just one mom and dad who are under pressure and chronic stress to make money all the time. And at some point, when their soul decision has been made to complete that life, that human, that natural human, dies. And I say that in quotes. Why? Because we know we don't die. We're eternal divine beings. But the physical vessel is shed because the adventure, the task, the goals are complete. Or sometimes maybe we've gotten so off track with our soul's intention, like through heavy addiction or down rabbit holes we can never get out of, that we miss the opportunity and then we pass. I have a feeling that that there are many people who have that experience at different incarnations, but that's a whole nother conversation. Not going to go there. So we have life cycles. There is a life cycle. We do not live eternally. Maybe in the golden age to come, we will live for hundreds or thousands of years. I don't know. And maybe we did in the past. It's quite possible we did. I think it's probable. I think that the natural human probably does live healthier, longer lives than what we've seen in our lives, in our incarnations, in our written history, which again is probably a pretty brief period of time in history. I don't know, but probably given the evidence that some ancient history people and galactic history people are bringing forward now. But nonetheless, there is a point where we shed this vehicle because it no longer serves whatever our soul's intent was. So the desire to live forever in one vehicle may not be part of what the natural human is at all. So on the one hand, so this is a kind of spiritual paradox, because on the one hand, one of the things I'm saying here is that we have to honor the natural body. We have to honor this beautiful vehicle. This, what is the natural human? We're walking in this mind-body vehicle that was made from Gaia Sophia, from Mother Earth, right? And at the same time, we have to recognize that we do shed these vehicles at some point, remaining eternal in our consciousness. But the natural human is a divine spiritual being that probably lives all over the place and does all kinds of different adventures, but comes into a body on Mother Earth, on Gaia Sophia, to have a walk and experience. Okay, so immune systems. Oh, I wanted to talk a little, just touch on one other thing with immune systems. Now, maybe for some of you who are much, much younger, you may not know this, or maybe this is only a thing that happened in US culture, so I'd be interested in hearing from some of you. Hey, Evelina. Hey, Yukta. Welcome, welcome. But anyway, when I was a kid, and when my kid was a kid, and when my parents were kids, they had this thing called chickenpox parties. Has anyone heard of this? One person in the family or in the school gets the chickenpox, and all the parents bring their kids over to the kid's house to get the exposure, so that we're sure that the chickenpox goes through the body system of the child rather than the adult. Because when the child goes through the chickenpox, it builds an immunity that it never has to deal with that again, as opposed to if one is never exposed, it's a lot harder to go through chickenpox as an adult. This is about true, organic, natural herd immunity. It is not from something else. Now, I don't want to go into a whole thing about the whole V issue historically, and polio and some of the other key things. There are doctors who have studied this stuff, who are talking about electromagnetic frequencies and the association with that versus the introduction of V as the reduction, like the spike actually comes from something else and the reduction is natural following a period of the human adjustment to new electromagnetic frequencies. Not my area of expertise, but if you're curious about that, I can find the name of the author in the book. It's like a doorstop of a book. It's pretty intense. I didn't read it. I just flipped through a little, but I think there's an argument to challenge the current belief system around these things. But let's just shelve that for now. We're talking about here building the natural human, right? This is the natural. We're talking about the natural human and how the natural human may have lived and may still live, because in this splitting of the worlds, there are those who are going to go on an unnatural path that may or may not actually survive much longer. We don't know, but certainly their experience is going to be very different than those of us who are choosing what you would call a natural human path. Okay, so let's see, electrical soup. Yeah, I want to talk about the electrical soup. Let me give a sip here and say hello to Usha and any other sisters who have come online now who haven't yet made a comment. Hello and welcome. Okay, so we talk about this transition we're going through from 5D or from 3D to 5D. Okay, 3D to 5D. Third dimensional consciousness, where we're looking at, a very dense form of consciousness where if you can't see it, feel it, and touch it, it's not real, into a level of consciousness where we are more connected with our multi-dimensional awareness and reality. Those of us who have been dedicated to our spiritual practices, if we began our lives in a very dense 3D where we couldn't hear our spirit guides and we couldn't sense energy and we weren't psychic, as we do our work, we're becoming more 5D. We're activating those crystalline strands of DNA to reconnect with our true, what I would call a natural human. So the natural human isn't just the dense 3D. That's where the distinction between sort of a primitive, although many primitive cultures are extremely psychic, right? But we're this multidimensional being. So one of the things that's happening in this diversion, or this bifurcation, this split of the worlds, there are those of us who are going down the 5D path. Then there are those who are going down another path that is connected with a certain electromagnetic frequency that begins with the number 5, and the letter that follows it is the letter that comes after the letter F in the English alphabet and rhymes with D. I'm going to call it hiveg. Hive, as in hooking the consciousness up to a hive mind that is inorganic. So that's where all of this is leading to. This is what I wanted to come to in this. And again, I've got to use code. We are talking about a bifurcation, and I could be wrong, sisters. So everything I share with you, I want to remind you, take what works for you, leave the rest. If something is triggering for you, I invite you to research it a little yourself. I invite you to take it into the cauldron of your own wisdom and meditate on it and pray on it and connect with your guides to get your own truth and clarity. But I'm going to bring to you what feels deeply true to me. And that is that this bifurcation, we've got an organic timeline where people are going back to be natural humans, where we are going to break down the unloving systems and we're going to live in smaller communities. And that doesn't mean it has to be primitive. It is just that the unloving aspects of control, hive mind, and what we would call inorganic control of our consciousness is removed. We don't play in that playground anymore at all. And then there are those who are choosing what you could call a hiveg consciousness, an inorganic timeline. So what's been coming to me so much lately, as we think about, when we look at the world and we say something is wrong, something needs to change. And at the highest level, you've heard me say this before. Those of you who've been with me for a while, I talk about how at the highest level of all this, we are creating it all. We are divine, eternal beings, never having left our source, the divine Mother, Father, God, having a dream in the mind, having a dream of separation, a dream that initially triggered a lot of fear, a dream that has co-created worlds that some of which are very, we could say, dystopic and frightful. Okay. So understanding that's the biggest possible picture. Now, from that, we drop into this particular realm of separation from source that we've co-created. What's happened here, from the best, again, of my knowledge, take it if it resonates, throw it away if it doesn't, is that somehow, some way, in our fear and our disconnection and perhaps our curiosity, we collectively I don't mean individual personalities, Dawn and Pat and Yukta and Evelina. I mean as an energetic collective. Invoked and energetic into this realm, into this cosmos, into this Milky Way galaxy, I'm not sure which, that of a consciousness, of an energy that ripped a hole in the time space and brought in inorganic, technologically artificial intelligence. And that may be the monkey wrench that's been screwing up everything on planet Earth for goddess only knows how long. I could be wrong. But I'm not the only one who talks about these things. You can look up the word Archon. It was written in the those lost books. I don't know if it was the Nag Hammadi or the lost texts of the Essenes talk about this, and many others. I'm going to be having at least one and probably two priestesses on Return of the Priestess this year who will be speaking into this as well. But of course, those will be on a private platform, so I don't have to censor myself so much. But this force, this inorganic consciousness is part of what I think is it is what is causing the problem, taking us away from being a natural human, hijacking our consciousness into things that are unloving and unlife-giving. And again, think about the word evil, E-V-I-L. Flip it. It's live backwards. The negative forces on this planet are anti-life. Pro-science to the point of believing there is nothing else other than this reality, because when you die, you get turned off just like a dead computer. For those of you who ever watched Star Trek: The Next Generation, you know about the Borg. If you don't, I invite you to check out an episode on YouTube or two, just to get a sense of what I'm talking about. The hive mind that is inorganic. And we think about some of the distortions that we're seeing, the bizarre distortions that we are seeing on the planet. The heartlessness, the lack of empathy, the distortions and confusions around gender. And I am not talking about homosexuality, because we know in any society there is always a percentage of people who will be gay. That is normal. What is not normal, though, is what is going on now. What is not normal is when parents are starting to, and actual officials are starting to talk about changing a child's gender before they reach the age of consent, before they can vote. I didn't let my kid get a tattoo till he was 18 years old. I don't know about you, but if I were a parent right now, I certainly wouldn't be doing hormone therapy for a child before they were an adult. I certainly wouldn't be changing their genitalia. What is going on? Well, computers are neuter, aren't they? No need for gender. But what is the natural human? The natural human comes, we got two options in the natural human: female or male. And while there is sexual preference, there's always a percentage, and it's about the same across the board, whether you're looking at different cultures, different societies, indigenous or not, that are going to have a different sexual preference or more of a neutrality. Often they become the shamans, the mystics. We still come in two forms, female and male. It's part of an energetic polarity that helps to create. And so this is a distortion that I feel is part of neutering the human. Neutering the human. And there are many other things we could talk about. And I've been on for 34 minutes now, so I don't want to go too far into that. That's part of what I was writing the essay on. There's a neutering of our intellect. I'm just going to touch on them a couple minutes. I'm not going to go deep in any one, but neutering of our intellect. so that we just obey authority and don't think for ourselves, don't do research for ourselves. In fact, there's so much censorship now that those who want to get other information don't even know how to get into the slipstream of alternative points of view. So there's a neutering of intellect, neutering of consciousness, neutering of gender, neutering of creativity. Keep people in chronic stress to make money and working all the time. Their creativity is totally neutered. And that, by the way, is another thing of what is the natural human, is a creative being, a creator being, infinitely creative. Well, the Industrial Revolution really did a number on humanity, and especially the Western human, to totally pressure down so the point where we don't have so much creativity anymore. And many of our retired elders who worked their butts off all their lives just to raise a family and all of that, what do they do now? They sit in front of the TV and, not all of them, but many, neutered, creativity neutered. This is, again, I encourage you to check out a Star Trek Next Generation and look for Star Trek Next Generation Borg and watch a couple of those. If you're half human, half Borg, half AI, half artificial, half computer, you don't need to procreate. Think about also the Matrix, of course, and these dystopic futures that are the fantasy of an inorganic consciousness that would like to take things over. Now, I know this is going very dystopic. And again, as always, I invite you, take what works for you, leave the rest. But the reason why I share this is because I feel part of I know what my mission, my service is as I bring in information, as the information comes in and through me and I get the downloads, to share them with those people in my community so that we can bring as many people into the organic timeline of 5D ascension rather than hiveg descension, to bring as many into 5D as possible, to return to the natural human, to reimagine the natural human, to reconnect and reclaim and restore the loving heart, the compassion, the empathy, the aspects of our humanity that are natural. So that's why I share these messages. I don't share them to create more fear, although fear is part of what we have to face so we can alchemize it. So on the one hand, I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell you anything frightening. And then on the other hand, I'm like, well, let's really look, let's really stop, turn around, face the fear, look at it and go, holy crap. Ah! You mean Dawn's trying to tell me that there are machines that are trying to take over our planet? That is terrifying. Maybe, I don't know. Well, I kind of feel it's true. But anyway, when you face it, you look at it, you go, oh, okay, let's process this. Let's pray around this. Let's double down on our own natural. How do I connect with my own divinity? How do I come back to peace? For me, it's Course in Miracles and deep meditation. Being on the earth, being in natural environments. I'm like, yeah, this is the natural human. And then I alchemize that fear so that I can then hold the frequency of love and light, natural human, divine, eternal being, walking the path of a natural human at the time of the great divide, at the time of the great awakening and the great hijacking of some of our sisters and brothers into some other hiveg mentality, reality, experience, we could say, not the eternal reality, but a temporary one. So I know I'm saying a lot of stuff here. I'm curious your reflections and thoughts. So I'm going to check some of your messages here. See if you have any comments or thoughts, please do add them and we'll spend a little bit of time with that now. So Yukta says, love from India. This full moon has lifted a veil for sure. Yes, I didn't even talk about that, the full moon. What powerful energies. I feel we are moving more toward clarity in the collective consciousness. How was your experience, dearest sisters? Yes, I'd love to hear that as well. I mean, this whole thing about the natural human was a thing that came through for me. Probably a few other things too, personal things about some of my structural issues that I have and stuff. But yeah, this whole what is the natural human was part of the sort of the veil and the just really honestly facing, yeah, there's an inorganic energy, very clever, that is doing some kind of weird shit to humanity right now. And the jab might be part of that, and certainly this is part of it as well. And the distance, the inability to touch and connect, because of course, if you're a computer, if you're inorganic, you don't need any of that stuff. You don't need to hug. You don't need empathy. You don't need the breath of life. You don't need any of that. And we know that there are many people who are talking about the jab and what's inside of it that may actually be able to hijack consciousness, to say nothing of the storm of what's called pathogenic priming. So, but again, I'm not going to go too far there. That's not the topic today. Pat, she's saying social distancing is outside the aura or connection on a soul level. Oh, thank you. Yes, right? What's this thing about the distance? The auras no longer connect. That's beautiful. Thank you for that. And hadn't even put those two and two together. Usha says, sorry, I'm late today. Hi, all dear sisters. Lots of love from London and to you as well. She says, I heard of chickenpox parties where we did that with my boys. Yep. I did it with my son as well. I actually got mine from my cousin. So we were at a family summer gathering. So I didn't have to go to a chickenpox party. Pat says agendas for depopulation are many. Yes, this is the other thing to think about. There is an agenda for depopulation because, if machines are running the planet, they don't want all us smelly people with all our issues and our problems and our stuff. They want this place to, whatever it is they're mining for. I don't know if it's the precious metals that they use to run their machines. I really, that's like a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But there are multiple agendas, and it's so dystopic. It's so bizarre. It's so not what we were told this earth walk, quote unquote, reality is. But when we connect with our divinity, when we know who we are as divine eternal beings, we can look at it with a level of equanimity and a level of love and compassion, and with less fear. And the human self, that with the ego that wants to keep us alive, has to alchemize that fear. That's just part of it. We have to do that alchemy. That is a key piece. But there are many depopulation agendas because they're trying to come at it from all angles. And think about the guy whose name rhymes with Phil Bates. This is a person who has a TED Talk that talks about the only way for us to really survive as a planet is to significantly reduce the population on the planet. You can go find that TED Talk. It's not a secret. Then think about how this same person, Phil Bates, is out there promoting the jabs to save the population. Things that make you go, really? This is a guy who's talking about reducing the population of the planet by a huge number. There are countries that are suing him for crimes against humanity. And we're supposed to trust this guy? That this is a thing we need in order to create herd immunity? That our mothers and grandmothers and fathers and grandfathers and great-grandfathers knew that if you just stick your kid next to the person with it, they'll develop it, have a mild case of it possibly. Some will have a tough case, yes. And then they'll be immune. Really? This is how hijacked humanity's consciousness has become. And that is not a natural human. It's a neutered consciousness because there is no more common sense. Common sense. Connected with earth, connected with divinity, paying attention to experience, recognizing that we are designed to be on this planet. All of that. Okay. Pat also says, knowing the darkness lets us embrace the light. Yes, in this world of duality and polarity, when we see the darkness, it is a way for us to embrace the light. But I would argue that they're not equal. There's darkness, and then you turn on the light and the darkness is gone. And this is where we have to recognize the truth of our eternal divine beings. We are the light. We are always the light. And when we activate that light within us, instead of being caught in the fear of the darkness, when we recognize, wait a minute, I'm all that was, ever will be, and ever was. I am a divine, eternal child of the One. And when I shine my light, there is no more darkness. They're not equal in that way. This is one of the teachings of the Course in Miracles that I feel is really of deep value, as well as non-dual teachings in general. So there is a sense of peering into the darkness and going, whoa, well, and it helps us go, well, yeah, that, like, I'm not going to choose that one. Thank you very much. I'm going to go for the other option, which is light and love and healing and forgiveness and activation of my greatest potential and all of that, which means we have to remove our attention from that darkness and then turn on our own love light so that it begins to emanate and dissipate the shadow, so to speak. I hope that makes sense. Amy says, what a beautiful way to describe what we are going through. Thank you, Amy. I'm not sure which specific thing you're talking about, but thank you. Anjuna, hello, dear. I know we're going to be speaking soon. Looking forward to that. And she says, I feel you, and galactic organic we are. Indeed, indeed. Galactic organic. Beautiful way to put it. Thank you. And she says it's important to share. Janelle says, my father is in full 3D mode and we are in disagreement about some key issues. I may have to set some strong boundaries with him soon. Part of the heroine's journey of kill the teacher / father, owning my sovereignty and feeling very shaky. So thanks for these weekly meetings. Yes, you're welcome, dear. And remember, this is, what do I want to say about this? Give me a sec. Once we are adults and of age, which I know you are, you're not under 18, we have every right to our own sovereign choices. There is no other person on this planet, even quote unquote authorities, who have the right to dictate anything in our lives. Anything. Full stop. You are your own sovereign being and you have the right to your own choices, including the choice not to have conversations about things you disagree with those you love, because this is the challenge, right? There are those we love who are making a different timeline choice. And we have to honor and respect that where they are on their soul's evolutionary journey in the eternity of the divine, that's where they're at. That's the choice they're making. We could say, my goddess, they are so ill-informed because of the censorship, they don't know. This is where Jesus said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But we hold them in the space of compassion. And yes, we set clear boundaries. If they are trying to tell us what to do, I love you. Thank you. I know that the advice or the recommendations you're giving me are because you care about me. Thank you. Let's not talk about this anymore. I've made my sovereign choice based on my own research. So not knowing the specifics of what you're going through, Janelle, I hope that that is helpful. It is a big challenge at this time for many people on the planet. And as I said a few weeks ago, I talked about this. This is the time for us to withdraw our energies from trying to bring people on board with the timeline we are choosing, whichever timeline you're choosing, by the way. It's like, think about, you got one foot on each of those trains. They were going straight for a while. Now they're parting. Uh-oh, you're going to start feeling too split and divided. We have to reel in our energies about looking at all the nonsense out there, all the craziness, all the distortion, all the bizarreness, all the hatefulness, all of the people who are choosing the, what did I call it? Hiveg timeline. With love, with compassion, with recognition of the eternal divine nature of our beings, and say, I choose love. I choose my love light. I choose this timeline. I choose to hold the frequency of love. I choose to hold the space for healing and awakening for myself and my sisters and brothers who will be here with me. I choose to anchor that light for the times ahead when the systems are collapsing and in full collapse and the poop is hitting the fan, that I am in the frequency of love light, and I have established myself in a time and a place with the people that I know that we're going to hold this frequency to see the new earth to come. That, by the way, is why I moved here, or am in the process of moving here. I will be building a temple this summer, my Priestess temple. It's actually a yurt made in Mongolia by a Mongolian family. So it's round. It will not have electricity in it, I don't think, but I do want music. So, because there's going to be a lot of dancing going on there. But basically, I am in a rural area in the forest with people who have a lot of common sense and are definitely living a more natural human life. It isn't necessarily a wildly spiritual community. I'm not at some like glorified yoga festival. I'm with people who live as natural humans with common sense, and on a property that I can develop to grow some of my own food, to be in exchange with others, and to be in nature, to hold the field as a priestess through the changeover years and into the new earth and what we will seed in the years to come. And I know that I will have new skills that I'll be developing. And I don't know all what those are, but I'm excited about them. And it is deeply connected with Mother Earth. That is truly important to me. And so to kind of wrap up for today, I see, is there another, I'll comment on that in a second. But to make a couple of sort of starting to conclude sentences, I would again invite you to consider and look at, where do you live right now? Do you live in a city? What would happen if food supplies got cut right now? What would happen if your water got cut? What can you do to begin to transition to a way of being that is more like a natural human? What assets do you have in terms of skills or actual physical stuff, like physical money or precious metals, or not physical, but crypto? That's a whole nother thing. I will be having a priestess talking a little bit about sovereignty, through feminine sovereignty, through understanding these new currencies that may be coming online in the Return of the Priestess series. So just start to look at, how can I live as a more natural human? Can I start growing lettuces and vegetables and herbs in my apartment, if you live in an apartment? Can I look to make a move out of the urban environment I'm living in, if you're living in an urban environment? How can I begin to activate my natural humanness? Connecting, we do a lot here with connecting with the divine, but how about with the earth? What are you doing in that regard? What are you doing with regard? Who is my community members? Who has my back? Who would I exchange food or other resources with if we didn't have these mega systems and big grocery stores and stuff? These are things to think about, not with fear, but with wisdom. And what will happen is, as you open the door to this conversation within, guidance will begin to guide you. I'm sure it's already guiding you as to what decisions you might want to make to make shifts or changes when and where necessary. Okay, so we have a couple other comments. Janelle says, thank you. No more trying to educate or persuade anyone, just accept and taking care of myself first. Yep, that's basically what it amounts to. It's, arguing with someone who's convinced, even if they've done zero research, which sadly is the case a lot. Why? Why would we do it? As one of my old friends would say, you might as well argue with a hole in the ground. Actually, my dad used to say that, and then I had a friend who would say it too. And then Usha says, your temple sounds divine. Yes, I'm so excited. A little round place where the doorway is only 4.5 feet tall. So even I, at my 5'3", has to tuck to go in. I'll have a little fireplace in there, and everything's going to be low to the ground. And I'm very excited. But, I got to build the deck first, and there's some other things that need to happen first. But it won't be delivered until July, so I've got some time. Okay, my dear sisters, I thank you as always for being with me. We've been on just under an hour now. I really invite you to continue this conversation here in this stream, and to really support each other, uh, returning to our natural human state, our divine human. Okay, so, or galactic organic. As Anjuna said, galactic organic divine human. This is what we are moving to. And so, how can we support our bodies, our body mind vehicles, and our own spirits, our soul's intention to do that with as much grace and ease as possible? So, I'll leave you with that for now. I'm really, really thankful for all of you being here. I'm sending you much love and bright blessings for the week. I'll be in touch a little bit, but I don't come online here, as you know, a lot during the week. It's mostly because I don't like being online. I have to do a lot of other things online, so. But know that I love you. I hold you all in my prayers. And also remember to mark your calendars. April 25th is the live kickoff to 2 weeks of Return of the Priestess 2. With that, much love, much love, much love. Bright blessings. May you be well. May you be blessed. May you feel the wholeness. May the goddess be in your heart. Until soon. Bye for now. Mwah.